Thank you, and I want to thank IMI for the opportunity to present this project to you today. The EUROPAIN project has a longer title of Understanding Chronic Pain and Improving Its Treatment. And this is really a challenge. We are three partners in this who have one problem in common. And our patients, they need a better and safer treatment for pain because there are very few. The socioeconomic burden on society for chronic pain is very large. And FPA members have not been successful in developing new analgesics. So why is it important for patients? Well, you and I can feel pain sometime or another, that's one thing. But on average, 1 out of every 5 Europeans suffer from chronic pain, which is devastating and a very widespread problem. And existing drug therapies are inefficient. Our best drugs can treat about 1/3 to maximum 1/2 of the patients. And a majority of patients actually stop treatment due to lack of efficacy or due to side effects. So treatment as a whole is not very lucksome or successful. So in spite of major scientific advances in understanding pain, treatment options have not improved. There have been new drugs, yes, but I'd say there have been new pharmacological entities, but not very many new principles, and that's probably what is needed to help us reduce the problem. So it's a problem not only for the individual, but also for society. Europeans with chronic pain, they suffer on average for 7 years, which is a quite long time. The cost is high. The direct cost is estimated at 34 billion euros a year, and the indirect costs are several-fold to that, approximately 5-fold. So the ultimate goal is to improve the pharmacological treatments against pain and reduce the burden of illness for the benefit of the patients and for society. But it's also a challenge for the FPA members of the drug industry because developing new drugs is complex, it's very resource demanding and time consuming. And within neuroscience, we do have about half the success rate as to other disease areas. So only 4% of CNS drugs reaching into man will actually come to the market and to the benefit of patients. So we need to improve early predictions so that we can spend our resources on the right projects, on the drugs that will become medicines. And in doing so, we need to collaborate closely between academic partners, SMEs, and FPA members. There are a few reasons why developing new analgesics is difficult. Not only, or there's a reason why it's so difficult and takes so much time and resources. For one thing, pain experience and related problems are not always predictably related to the underlying cause. Today, we give a pain diagnosis related to which part of the body the pain is situated in, and that's not really the mechanism. But we need to address the mechanism when we treat the patient. And different forms of pain have different underlying mechanisms. We are getting closer to having a more personalized healthcare and drug treatment, and to do that, we need to be able to identify the right patient segment who will benefit from receiving the drug. The other problem is that we do a lot of preclinical experiments and trials on, for instance, rodents, but the rats do not speak to us. They cannot tell whether they are in pain or not. So the gap between our preclinical models, which are behavioral models to a large extent, and humans, has not been overcome. And that is one of the great challenges with this project, that we will try to do this. We are able to identify novel targets more easily than we did because our methodologies have increased. But the importance and the impact of addressing these targets, we know very, very little about as yet. So what will we do? Well, to start, it's always good to look back and see what could we have done differently in the way we work. So previous drawbacks and learning will give us a platform to go forward from. And by doing so, we will also identify common mechanisms that can be translated from animals to humans, and preferably also from humans to animals and then back again, in order to show the relevance for our patients. We also want to improve the understanding of the clinical findings to the sensitivity of existing analgesics. That is, why does a specific analgesic work? Some drugs work in humans and not so well in animals, but for the majority of cases, it's actually the opposite. So what is actually in common for drugs who work in both species? We will also determine the risk factors for developing chronic pain. We will improve and refine the animal models of chronic pain for them to be more relevant to humans. For instance, by developing models that are specific for different disease mechanisms, like HIV-induced pain, different type of nerve injury pain, diabetes-induced pain, which are different as to their clinical susceptibility and response pattern to drug treatment. We also want to establish and validate the mechanism-based human pain models, because it's much easier to do a study in human volunteers and then have an estimate of what the effect will be in humans, in patients. As for Alzheimer, where you need to do very large studies for very, very long time, this is the case for pain too, not as explicit, but you need to do a 3-month trial to be sure that you really have some type of effect, and with several hundreds of patients, because the variability is so very high. Also, we want to find, which is a contradiction, I should say, because pain is the subjective perception as per definition, and we want to find an objective measure of spontaneous pain. But to correlate the spontaneous pain perception, we want to correlate it to objective measures using very advanced technologies. And we want to identify novel pain mediators, which are important in chronic pain. So how will we do this? We will use very advanced technologies, very specific nerve function tests, new imaging techniques, different types of MRI, and expanding technologies. We are to explore new biochemical biomarkers, develop disease-specific animal models, as I related, and to develop target-specific models in humans. Then we want to correlate this to disease-specific patterns in patients. And one advantage we actually have in pain is that we can prospectively study development of pain. There's patients who are subjected to surgery very often, but at least in about 10% develop a chronic pain condition, which lasts for several years after surgery. So then we have the possibility to study any predictors on the patient side, for instance, genetics or behavioral patterns that will actually make the patient more prone to chronic pain.